am Lauren Walsh. I'm the moderator for this session. I'm a professor at NYU and the founding director of the Gallatin Photojournalism Intensive. I'm also the director of the Lost Worlds America Photography Archive, and I'm a specialist in the photojournalistic documentation of conflict and crisis. A few statistics, just to set the tone for this session. 2024 was the hottest year on record. 99% of people breathe toxic air. 1 in 9 deaths worldwide are due to air pollution. And over the last century and a half, the global average sea level has risen over 8 inches. You may or may not have known those statistics before I just gave them to you, but you do know, we all know, that our planet, our climate, our oceans face staggering realities, huge challenges. And for many of us, this can be stress-inducing, anxiety-provoking, nerve-wracking, overwhelming, even paralyzing, right? What can I do to make a difference in something so vast? And those are understandable feelings, but those are not the approaches that the 3 individuals who are sitting here with me have taken in their work. They have met the challenge. They have said, I will find ways to make change. I will raise awareness. I will have impact. So 3 visions, 3 unique and illustrious careers are sitting with me on the stage. And they have decided to meet this challenge not through the nerve-wracking approach, but by saying, I will take pictures, I will document, it will be vivid, lyrical, poetic imagery that will force audiences like us to stop and listen and look and learn and care. So that's the approach we're going to take in this session today. And what I'd like to do is introduce these 3 panelists. To my left, Ami Vitale is a renowned National Geographic photographer and filmmaker whose journey began in conflict zones where she witnessed how environmental destruction drives human suffering. These early experiences shaped her deep understanding of the interconnection between ecological and humanitarian crises, a theme that continues to define her work. Today, Ami focuses on telling the stories of individuals living on the front lines of war, climate change, and extinction. She illuminates the fragile balance between humanity and nature, connecting local conservation efforts to a wider global significance. Ami is the founder and executive director of Vital Impacts, a nonprofit that harnesses the power of art to inspire young people to become agents of change. Vital Impacts has raised over $5 million for critical conservation initiatives, and Ami has been named an honorary fellow of the Royal Photographic Society, has received the Lucy Humanitarian Award and the Missouri Honor Medal for Distinguished Service in Journalism. Welcome, Ami. Cristina Mittermeier, or Mitty, as many know her, is a visionary photographer, marine biologist, and lifelong conservationist. She stands as a formidable force in the realm of environmental advocacy. She was born and raised in Mexico, and as a photographer and activist, has dedicated her life to protecting, sorry, we should be looking at work by her while I read this.
Oh, that's okay.
No. Has dedicated her life to protecting the natural world and the rights and sovereignty of indigenous people. In 2014, she co-founded the nonprofit Sea Legacy to protect the Earth's oceans and benefit biodiversity through storytelling and advocacy. Cristina's work has been exhibited in museums around the world and been published in hundreds of magazines, including National Geographic, Time, and the Men's Journal. She's been honored with many awards, including the 2016 Imaging Award for Photographers Who Give Back. Along with her partner, photographer Paul Nicklin, she was named one of National Geographic's Adventurers of the Year and is nominated for the 2025 Emmys for the National Geographic series Photographer. Please welcome Cristina. And last but not least, Frans Lanting is a celebrated Dutch photographer. Take two. Frans Lanting is a celebrated Dutch photographer. He did pioneering work in Madagascar, where he documented wildlife and indigenous traditions never before photographed. His work in the Okavango Delta is credited with inspiring a surge in conservation efforts in Botswana. His photographs, whether of emperor penguins, rainforest ecology, the nearly extinct Asiatic cheetah, puffins in the North Atlantic, and well beyond, have been featured in publications around the world. He has received numerous awards and honors throughout his career, including many World Press Photo Awards, BBC Wildlife Photographer of the Year, the Sierra Club's Ansel Adams Award, a fellowship with the Royal Photographic Society, and induction to the Royal Order of the Golden Ark from the Netherlands. Woo!
Thank you.
I believe I should be calling you Sir Frans. He has also launched the Bay of Life Project, a multifaceted effort coordinated with writer Christine Ekstrom to document and celebrate the rich biodiversity of Monterey Bay, California. Please welcome Frans.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I would like to start off with a few questions. We're going to run this kind of an organic conversation, and I'll pitch some questions to our panelists. Amy, let me start off with you. As I mentioned in the bio, you began your work in conflict zones. I believe you were in Gaza and Kashmir, where you lived, if I'm not incorrect. And then you took a turn towards conservation photography. Was there a moment that inspired that turn? And has that shift shaped or influenced the way you practice photography?
Thank you. First, thank you for creating this panel, and it's a privilege to be here. I think back then I had been covering these conflicts all over the globe. My world was basically turned into a horror show. And it wasn't one moment. I was just really raw. And it was in that moment that I began to understand so much of these conflicts. At the backdrop of nearly every one of them was the natural world, our environment, and the breakdown of our environment, whether it's loss of fertile lands, loss of clean water, that leads to human suffering and conflict. And I realized that I was leaving out so much of the story by only focusing on the violence and the conflicts themselves, and that I really needed to do a 180 and talk about what we're doing to this world, but also where are the solutions? Because I also was realizing they're all around us. There's amazing people on the front lines of almost every single issue, and that by using photography and storytelling and our voices to amplify this work, you can actually help create change.
Thank you. I mean, I think the question that I'm going to follow up with for Cristina grows from this. And it's probably a question I could ask of any one of you on the stage, but you get it. And what I want to say is many of you work in spaces where you're witnessing destruction, degradation, suffering. I would say sometimes it is due to maybe human ignorance. Other times you're witnessing the effects of human greed, if not corruption, right, playing out in the environment. Mm-hmm. That said, when I look at your photographs, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in this room, I have a different experience. I see joy, resilience, innovation, beauty. Is that intentional, and if so, why?
Well, thanks for that question, Lauren, and it is an honor to be here with this panel. When I started photographing, I think the photography that we do comes from a deep place of empathy. And so I not only care about the natural world, I care about the rights of women, I care about war zones. I mean, I just feel the pain of the world. And I listen to great leaders that have fought in spaces like the civil rights movement. And I remember the famous speech by Dr. Martin Luther King. And, the choices presented, do we make images of the horror? Because those can create a reaction of recoil and rejection from the audience, or do we do something else? And Martin Luther King didn't start the famous speech by saying, "I have a nightmare." He said, "I have a dream." And Winston Churchill said it as well. You know, we go to war not because we want to kill each other, but because we have an ideal of what the world should be. So for me, my photography is that, you know, what is the aspiration of the planet that I would love to inhabit, and a reminder that it's still here. You know, we have to look a little harder these days, but the animals are still out there, and there's still a lot of indigenous knowledge, and we still have an incredible opportunity to do something about it. So that's why the photography focuses on that.
Thank you. And I'm going to follow up, Frans, with a question, again, growing from what Cristina was just saying about what some of her inspirations have been and how this affects her photography. I'm going to take you a little further back. I have been told that you have lived with seabirds for months at a time, that you camped with tortoises inside a volcano, and have tracked lions, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other adventures in there. What initially inspired you to go into photography, and particularly environmental photography, and into some very remote places?
Yeah, I was born and raised in the Netherlands, and I've always had a passion for nature, but I could never imagine that you could make a living spending time with animals in remote places like you just described. So I was actually trained as an environmental economist before I became a photographer, and that taught me how to look at the world analytically. My goal, my academic goal, was to establish a value for nature using economic science. And then I became a photographer, and I had to cultivate another side of my brain, because if you want to live with animals and document them on their own terms, you have to operate in a more intuitive manner. You have to humble yourself and let them do what they want to do before you can get into their world. So I cultivate both sides of my brain. If you want to be a photographer, you have to learn everything about your camera and everything about the business of photography, which is complex enough. But then when we enter into the natural world, and that is one of the many things that the three of us share, you have to become empathetic. And it doesn't matter whether you're working with animals or with people, they're all individuals.
On this note of empathy and being humble, Amy, I'm going to ask you a question about the northern white rhinos. So you have been documenting the northern white rhinos for 16 years. This is an extremely rare and intimate dedication to a story. And for those who don't know, the northern white rhinos, there are only 2 alive left on the face of the earth. Both are female, right? So there are 2 individuals left in this species. A few years back, the last remaining male northern white rhino, his name was Sudan, passed away. And as I understand, Amy, you were there for his final moments. And I'm going to rope this into what you were saying about empathy and being humble, because you are now in a space that is so precious, right? The last male northern white rhino ever. And you were granted the access to be there and among the rangers who were caring for him. This must have also, in addition to being special, been kind of devastating at the same time, right? Extreme loss. How do you move forward in the face of loss like that?
You know, I'm still raw about it every single time I think about it. And it was the most heartbreaking moment and sacred. And the thing I remember so much about that day was it wasn't just the loss of, you know, it actually signaled the loss of a species, but also the loss of this beautiful individual that these keepers had a relationship with. We all did. And it just felt like we were losing part of our world, right? And it was that haunting silence that I remember most. It was like foreshadowing what our world is going to be like. But the other piece of the story is there was also, you know, as I look back on it, so much hope too. Hope, because the people that were sitting beside him as he passed away are also the same individuals who are doing everything they can to bring this species back from extinction. And they're getting very close. I don't think science is going to save us, but it just showed me that there's so many remarkable people on this planet fighting for what's left. I'm sitting amongst some of them here. But also, you know, the last thing is just the power of what all of us do here. That single image, it ignited passion. It woke people up all across the planet. I happened to be in China right after and was in the streets doing street photography, and we were showing people pictures so they knew who I was, and everybody knew what that photo was. They saw it. It raised millions and millions of dollars, kept conservancies going through the pandemic, that one story. And so I realized, like, what we all do here is so powerful. And it's important not to just show the horrors, but also wherein lies the hope. And that really can spark great change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know you said we can't entirely rely on science, but correct me if I'm wrong, they have preserved sperm from the male northern white rhino, and they have eggs harvested from one of the remaining female northern white rhinos and are trying to implant fertilized embryos into another species of rhino to carry to term what will be a genetically 100% northern white rhino.
That is correct. There's a little more genetic diversity. It's not just one male. And then just quickly, because everybody asks this question about, but will there be enough genetic diversity? And actually, the southern white rhino went through the same bottleneck. They almost went extinct over 100 years ago. They were down to a small herd. Some people, they don't know exactly how many, maybe 20, maybe 40, all from the same genetic bottleneck. And now, you know, they had a population of as high as 21,000. So it's possible. These things are possible.
True. Thank you. See, I told you it would be inspiring. Cristina, let's take us to the oceans. And I'm just going to give you a very open, tell us about sea legacy.
Mm-hmm. So Ami, Frans, and I come from a tradition of photojournalism, working with incredible editors. Elizabeth Chris from National Geographic is here. People like that made our careers. And, you know, the privilege of working for a magazine like that, our peers, people like Keith Lesinski, it was a family. But Paul and I, my husband and I, you know, both worked in the magazine, worked with conservation in other areas, noticed that there was a very significant absence of storytelling from the ocean. Because it's the largest ecosystem on our planet, it's so difficult to access. And when you have cultivated a set of skills that allows you to be able to tell those stories, we felt like we were responsible for doing that. So we slowly pulled away from doing stories on assignment from National Geographic and decided to start our own nonprofit to shine the spotlight on the heroes in the front lines, the people that are protecting the sea turtles or collecting trash on the beaches or replanting corals. And a friend of mine, Nicole Helgeson, I see you sitting there, ocean gardeners in the middle of nowhere in Indonesia, training local people to replant coral reefs. I mean, these people are holding the avalanche of destruction, and their work is almost always invisible. Mm-hmm. People don't know about it, and because they don't know about it, they cannot support it and contribute to it. So that's what we do. We shine our light, our spotlight on their work, because that's the job.
Mm-hmm. Literally making it visible through the images that you're showing us.
Exactly, and you know, raising a lot of money, raising a lot of awareness, getting the media interested, corporate support, all of it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, but you know, we'll carry on doing it.
And if people want to learn more about Sea Legacy, where can...
So Sea Legacy is a Canadian charity. sealegacy.org, and you know, we've been doing it for a long time and learned a lot about it. I think one of the things that really holds us back is the lack of fundamental funding for storytelling in general. We all know that it's incredibly important, but the work that we do, the work that photographers out there do, is expensive, it's dangerous. There's not always a predictable return on investment. You know, it's very difficult to have KPIs, so it's difficult to fund us. And it's been a challenge to fund Sea Legacy, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you would think that's such a beautiful, bright brand, and I'm sure you have the same experience with Vital Impacts. You know, it's a constant hustle. It's a grind of raising money for this thing that we all depend on. And if it's difficult for us, imagine how difficult it is for the small mom and pop conservancy in the middle of nowhere. So my request, the gift that you all can give to the world is pick anything, penguins, fish, rhinos, it doesn't matter what it is, and just donate handsomely to the people in the front lines. Stop asking questions about the overhead and how much the CEO gets paid. It's a distraction. Our natural world is in serious trouble. Just in the next 10 years, please donate handsomely.
Frans, I'm going to ask you about one of your major projects, Bay of Life. You may recall in the slideshow you saw a few slides of buses, and I'm going to kind of roll it over to you to talk to us about Bay of Life.
Sure. First of all, I think one of the many things that unites Amy and Cristina and me is a belief that it's easier to lure people into believing that a better world is possible is if you give them hope. Hope is a really important empowering principle. Yes. And we didn't invent that idea. Some of our greatest heroes, from Sylvia Earle to Jane Goodall, who are in their 90s now, are still driven by that same principle. Mm-hmm. There is a better world possible. So after many years of documenting the world for National Geographic and other organizations and profiling wild animals and wild places, we decided to come home and to embrace Monterey Bay, where Christine Ekstrom, my wife and partner, just like Cristina and Paul are partners in life and work, we decided to embrace Monterey Bay because it's a story of hope. Yeah, it's the biggest hotspot of biodiversity in all of North America. But 100 years ago, it was a disaster zone. There were no redwoods left in the hills, and there were no whales left in the bay. It had been plundered, like so many other places in North America during the 19th century. And it's driven by the same principles that we are witnessing around the world. Short-term profit motives, not balanced out by a government or other entities that need to look out for society as a whole. So Monterey Bay is a hope spot because it's bounced back, but not just because of the resilience of nature. People really banded together and made it happen. With a success formula, there's always one or two crazy people who lead the way. Yes. Who do not take no for an answer. And in the case of Monterey Bay, it was a grumpy photographer who banded together with a visionary female journalist who worked for a local newspaper, and they became the catalyst. And they rallied philanthropists and politicians and scientists around themselves, and that is how the beginning of the environmental movement in Central California got started. They helped establish the first redwood park in the state of California.
Who was the photographer?
Pardon?
Who was the photographer?
Andrew Hill.
Ah.
So, and it rolled on from there, and what we've seen in Monterey Bay the last 50 years is extraordinary. The place is as vibrant as it used to be, and again, not because it happened automatically, people really made it happen. So we wanted to document this place not just for a global media company, we wanted to make the story relevant for the people who live and work there. So we decided to produce it independently so that we would control the story and own all the rights, because we wanted to give the pictures and everything else away, just like Cristina and Paul do, to share them with local nonprofits. And that's led to a new school curriculum that we're sharing with all the kids in Santa Cruz County. And it's also led to this bus campaign. You saw a picture flash by. We partnered with our local mass transit district, and we wrapped 30 buses with images from Monterey Bay, and they're circulating throughout our community. And it's one of the most gratifying things I've ever done in my career. Because when you publish a story or a book for a global media company, you know, you wonder, does it really touch people, and what is the feedback? I cannot go to a local grocery store without people referring to the buses. When is the next one? What is your favorite? And so on. So, thank you. The lesson for you all is this. If you want to make a difference with your photography, and I know many of you believe in that principle, learn from Cristina and from Ami, but consider doing something locally. Because it's expensive to go to Africa or Antarctica, and there's enough photographers and filmmakers operating there with big budgets. But everybody has a local community, and you are the expert at finding the partnerships to get the pictures to work for a larger cause. So a couple of things, and then I'll stop talking. If you believe in that principle of making a difference, consider it's not the pictures that you need to think about. It is what you want to do with the pictures and who you partner with and what are the goals you want to achieve. And then you become a campaigner. You're no longer a photographer, and I'll warn you, there's a lot of work involved, and a lot of it is not very glamorous. It took us 15 years from the moment I took that picture of a mountain lion getting killed by a car on Highway 17 before that underpass was built, and now the mountain lions are circulating.
It's a long time.
Yeah. So think of yourself not as an individual photographer, but think of yourself as somebody who can be a catalyst if you're crazy and stubborn enough, and then become part of a team of like-minded individuals. Go for it.
Yeah.
Thank
Frans,
you.
that in a way, the day you decide to do this work, you put on an invisible superhero suit, and you stop being a photographer. You become an ambassador, a spokesperson, an advocate, and it's so rewarding.
Totally. Can I add
Yeah,
to that?
I want you to jump in on that.
So I actually believe there's like little islands of hope, and we all need to connect and support each other. And I just want to give a quick shout out to anybody interested in this space. That's why I created Vital Impacts. And right now we're giving out $50,000 in grants, and it has to be local, and it has to be environmentally based with a solution, because we want to know who are the people that need their work amplified. So the deadline's September 15th, but we are doing so much at Vital Impacts, and if you're interested in this space, please get involved, because we're all, again, like these little islands of hope, and we can all help each other in these spaces in different ways.
Ami, tell us where to find information.
Okay, so you can go to our website, vitalimpactswithans.org, and we also have a speaker series that we bring to 5th to 9th graders. Keith Lazinski is in it. We have many amazing speakers that are a part of it, and then we also do fundraising, which Frans and Cristina support, and we give that money back to like local grassroots conservation orgs, and then part of it back to the photographers too, who are doing this important work. But we've got a number of programs, and please get involved, because I know the power of what all of us do. We all know it, and I think like this is the future, is sort of collaborations and supporting one another. Thank you.
Bravo. Thank you. Cristina, I want to ask you a question. It pivots maybe slightly away from the organizations and the projects that you all have shepherded. But in your bio, you may recall, there's a line that says that you support the rights and sovereignty of indigenous people. And I would really love for you to talk to us a little bit more about that, what motivates you. And we saw some of those images in the slideshow. What do you want us to feel and understand in response to them?
Well, thanks for that question, Lauren. My career started working for conservation, and particularly for Conservation International many, many years ago. And you were part of that too, Frans. And there was a moment when the shift in mindset came about in the early 1990s. And we used to think that in order to protect the place, you kind of had to remove everybody and put a fence around it. And then the realization came that there are indigenous people who live in those places, and not just indigenous, rural communities as well. And that in the absence of a real and deep partnership with those people, you cannot succeed. At the time, I was a young mother, and I wanted to be like Frans Lanting. He was the inspiration. I wanted to camp with the turtles, but I had little ones at home, and I couldn't. My ex-husband was a primatologist, and I traveled with him a lot looking for monkeys around the world. He would get up at 4 in the morning and go chase monkeys, and I would be left behind in the villages with my kids, you know, spend the day. That's how I started taking pictures of the indigenous people in those communities. And I remember the day that I had the realization as a photographer, well, maybe there's a story here that very few other people are telling of how important the knowledge, and it's not just the knowledge, it's not like indigenous people have these knowledge, although they do, you know, they know how to read the rain and the wind and the migration of creatures. It is a system of moral and ethical guidelines for how to live on planet Earth. And it's the Samburu, it's the Inuit, it doesn't matter where you go. And it runs deep and it's universal. It's a system of values that says you only take what you need and you use everything you take. Nobody in the community hoards for themselves. It's shared always and in community. And I think the most important one is that the most generous person is not the person who has the most, but the person who gives the most. And so there's always a sense of gifting and sharing. And I thought, you know, those principles are universal, and we tend to dismiss indigenous people and treat them like they are some kind of mumbo jumbo. But we need them, and we need their knowledge because they're adapting, and doesn't matter where you look, they are already confronting the ravages of climate change, and they're doing it with clarity and with ethical and moral, you know, courage. But more importantly, they're doing it with solutions. We're going to need all of that for our own adaptation plans, only if we're willing to listen to them.
And I just want to underscore, because I'm hearing so many through lines through your responses, that to me this also comes back to the individual who happens to be holding a camera, but the individual who is open and has empathy and is humble, right? Be willing to learn from other people, other places. You have also, you referenced the Samburu, and I know that you have done like decade-long work with Reteti, an indigenous-run elephant sanctuary. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And have you had similar realizations as Cristina was just describing?
Oh, absolutely. No, I met a group of Samburu when I was seeking out the solutions, and they had a dream, this audacious dream to build an elephant sanctuary. And at the time I met them, everybody was laughing at them, saying, you don't have political power, you don't have funding, this is never going to happen. And I was like, of course it's going to happen, and I'm going to be there. And I've been there throughout their whole journey when things were difficult, and just watching them finding solutions. They are doing things differently. There's this traditional conservation model, and they are breaking that open. And so just really quickly, for example, during the pandemic, they made one of their biggest discoveries. They looked to nature for a solution, but they were buying powdered milk formula for, as all elephant sanctuaries around the world do. It's a formula made for humans, and that's how they rescue babies. And across the globe, 50% of the time in the first 2 weeks, those babies will die because it's so hard to switch from their mother's milk to the human-made formula. Anyway, during the pandemic, they realized like the supply chains might break down. They sought the answers in nature and realized, yeah, the goats eat the same food as the elephants. And they started experimenting with goat milk, and now they went from a 50% survival rate to almost 100% survival rate. And the other beautiful thing is that the women are the ones that own the goat milk. So for the first time in their lives, they set up bank accounts, they have the elephants are giving them agency. They have, and I love seeing these kinds of solutions, but it takes time to see them evolve. That's why it's so important to stick with the story. Like, I could have stopped when the sanctuary opened, but it's like going back again and again and spending, significant amounts of your life in the communities you're working in to tell their story authentically. And then they give you, then you have the chance to see these stories evolve. But back to that, I mean, I just think nature and people, like all of the answers are right in front of us. We just have to use these challenging moments to reimagine how to do things differently. Mm-hmm. And just taking it back to our, you know, it feels like our world may be so different here, but actually maybe the systems we've created, you know, maybe we can change them and do them a little bit differently. Maybe this like tumultuous moment that we're in right now is an opportunity, instead of being afraid of it, like actually using it to re-examine how we're doing things and can we be doing things differently. You know, one last soundbite, sorry, but like I'm here in a hotel and it blows my mind. I'm in a country where I can turn the tap water on and actually get clean water from the tap, and then they're serving me plastic water bottles in my hotel, and I'm like, ah, why are we doing this? Anyway.
Yeah. Can I say something? Yes. Because I just went to Reteti and I went visiting, just, you know, had an opportunity. It's amazing, Amy, how much they love you and how much they revere you. And I don't think the Reteti story would have been the success that it is today had Ami Vitale not been there to bring it to the outside world and shine her beautiful light on the work of these people. So thank you, Amy. Such a good story, oh my God.
I can tell you the same is true because I've been to Old Pajeta with the northern white rhinos, and everyone loves Amy, and you have been an enormous influence there.
Thank you.
Frans, on this note of kind of lessons learned and moving forward, sometimes it takes looking back in order to think through how to go forward. And I want to ask you, you know, maybe a kind of bird's eye view question, which is, over your years as an environmental photographer, what major changes have you noticed both in the industry of photography, right, environmental photography, and in the environment?
Do we have an hour?
No, I'll tell you one story that may help tie things together. But before I do that, I want to invite everyone to come visit Monterey Bay. Mm-hmm. As a photographer and as a person who wants to feel that a better world is possible. So come to Santa Cruz, come visit us, join one of our programs there, and we'll show you the world like you haven't seen it before. But back to your question. I spent a lot of time in Madagascar. I was in a position to do that when very few photojournalists had been around that country for decades because it'd been isolated. And one of the places where I spent a lot of time is on the west coast of Madagascar. Cristina knows that area very well. That's where the Vezo people live. They're nomadic fishermen. And I spent a month camping with one family, and I documented their family life and how they were making a living. A couple of years ago, Christine and I went back there with a stack of prints, portraits of people that I had photographed and ceremonies that I had photographed. And we walked into the village and we presented the prints to the chief of the village. That's what you do when you walk into a village. You pay your respect. And within minutes, word got around, there was a Vazaha, a white person who had something to share. And the pictures created a sensation because they had documented a way of life that had totally been changed. And the pictures became currency for new conversations. Wow. Mm-hmm. And we documented 30 years ago the interactions between people and sea turtles. The sea turtles are gone. The ceremonies are forgotten. And it showed us, as well as the people there, how quickly cultural beliefs vanish when the natural resources dwindle. These two things go hand in hand. And that is what Christina's work is all about. And that is what Amy is also affirming with her work. So we ended up depositing the prints, and we ended up making a grant to a local nonprofit with the goal to use these prints as currencies for ongoing conversations with elders, because the elders still remember the way it was. And now a younger generation is equipped, thanks to the grant, with recording devices to capture the conversations, and the prints and the conversations will be archived in a museum in Tulliar to document the way things were and to empower a next generation.
Amazing, Frans.
So, beyond all these aspirations we have, don't forget how quickly the world is changing, and what you look at, even in your own community, can become a record for the future.
Yeah, can I add on to that, Frans? Because I think there's a tendency now to do a lot of work that seems more shallow, you know, in and out, quick, iPhone, whatever. There is a lot of value in doing the deep work of the photographic work, of being in a place for a long period of time and understanding. And I just want to commend both of you. I mean, it's amazing, the commitment long term to a story that, you know, you plant a seed, you may never see the tree grow, and we do this all the time. And I want to say one more thing. When you're a full-time working photographer and you take on the additional role of being the creator and the director of a nonprofit, you are dividing your time equally. I mean, the nonprofit part doesn't pay. And in addition to that, you have to be an accomplished storyteller and photographer making a living, and it is incredibly hard. So I just want to say thank you for both of us for that lifelong commitment and sacrifice. Thank you.
I don't think I need to underscore that these are very good people who really believe in what they do. I do want to save time for a question or two from the audience for our panelists.
I just wanted to ask a quick question about how you guys engage with you know, people in indigenous tribes and you putting a camera in front of them, and what is that interaction like?
I go so slowly. As I said, my shortest story took 3 years. My longest one is 16 years, and I don't go with the camera first. I actually go and listen. And I mean, I think many of us are actually introverts, probably a lot of you in the audience too. I think photographers tend to be introverts, and the main thing, that's like our superpower because we can be good listeners. So I think first going and listening and realizing, yes, you do your research, but make sure you're not pre-scripting a story that is totally like not even real. I think that is the danger with a lot of journalism, frankly, is like we go and repeat the same stories, and the stories have evolved or never even were that story. I think letting people share takes time. Building those relationships is so important, and it takes time and trust. And so just pick one thing. That's my thing, is like just go deep on one thing and really like commit yourself to being, you know, to hearing the stories authentically and doing justice to the people. We have a responsibility to them. And I think if you let that guide you, you know, people then will really open up to you.
I would add on to that, that it's very, very difficult to just wander into an indigenous community. It almost never goes well. And so going in with trusted people who have worked there, could be anthropologists or scientists that are going to help introduce you. And it's true, you know, I hear this all over the world. White people talk too much. So go in there and listen and just be so respectful. And
for sure, and understanding the colonial history, like understanding what, you know, paths, even photographers, and understanding our sword it's a two-way sword. We can be incredibly powerful and impactful at the same time, incredibly exploitative. And knowing that, knowing the history of that is so key.
Frans, did you want to add anything?
I echo what they just said, but it doesn't just apply to people beyond the horizon. As an extension of the Bay of Life project, we're doing a new round of field work, reaching out to farmers and ranchers who do not necessarily ascribe to the same political beliefs that Christine and I have. So we don't come in and talk about climate change. We ask about the weather.
That's right.
You know, you establish common ground, and there is nothing that farmers and ranchers like to talk about more than the weather, because they know everything about it.
So true.
You know?
No, it's true. That's really clever. Yeah.
All right, one more question.
So I'm a student who is inspired by you guys, but also I want to be an advocate in my own world and the people around me. And I'm wondering, how did you get into this aspect of work? How did you push to be so high up and also just be part of what you're part of?
I don't think I started with those ambitions in a way. I think it was just genuine curiosity and like finding what's right in front of you. And I will say, because I judge a lot of these grants that are coming in, that and I've noticed there's such pressure to be an influencer, right, and to be the voice. And actually, I've noticed a real erosion in a way of the actual work, the photography work, because people are so focused on being good presenters in a way. And I'm not diminishing the importance of that, but I would say maybe put the phone away and actually just take the time to really engage and learn and be curious, and then everything else will come. And like the ambitions, how many times people say, I want to be a Nat Geo photographer. I'm like, actually, if you want to just be, just tell a good story that is going to do justice to your community and the people right there, we have so much work to do, all of us. Like, that's the other last thought, is just that we all kind of make excuses, like the problem's too big, somebody else is going to take care of it. Or, what can one individual do? No, it's like, just pick, you said it yesterday, I saw pick up your cape.
Your superhero invisible suit.
Right? And pick a cause, any cause, and just commit to it. And like, bravo,
And
exactly.
that's for us, our photographer's vest, right?
Yes.
All right, on the note of the superhero's cape, we will be wearing them and meeting you at the speaker meet and greet. I hope you have found this inspirational, right? As you said, there is a lot of challenge that we're facing, but 3 individuals who are navigating this and hopefully teaching all of us ways to make meaningful difference in our own lives. So please, a round of applause for that.
And wait, can we? Thank you. I just want to give a.
Yes, the Lord too.
Give a last shout out to Lauren, who this was her idea to create this panel, and I can't think of a more thoughtful individual. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you all for your vision and for your advocacy.